Alright, so this video is going to be about how to replace your instrument gauge cluster in a 98 Chevy Malibu. And this will be from the Chevy Malibu from 97 to 2005. It's the exact same way in this particular body style. And all, it's a really easy job. Shouldn't take you really more than 20 minutes if you do everything correctly. This is everything you're going to need. You're going to need a Phillips screwdriver, long flathead screwdriver. You're going to need a 7mm socket on about that long of an extension. You'll need a 1/4-inch ratchet and a pair of needle nose pliers. I'll show you what everything is for, obviously, as we get there. I will note that this is probably one of the easiest instrument clusters to change out. And another thing to note too is you're going to want to check the light bulbs in all these and switch them out with the ones in the cluster in your car. So now the very first thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and drop your steering wheel, and you're going to note that you have a screw right there, right in the middle, and a screw right there on the top. They're both Phillips head screws, and that's what your Phillips head screwdriver is for. So let's go ahead and take those out, and then we'll go with the next step. And now with those two screws out, always stick your old hardware into a place where you're not going to lose it, and on to the next step. So now you're going to take your long flathead screwdriver, and it's really easy to remove all this, but you're going to need to remove this whole trim panel off. It extends all the way to out here, and you want to be careful, especially if your car is older or has been exposed to a lot of sunlight, because plastic can become very brittle. And with a little prodding, poking, it comes right out. Bear in mind that you do have a connection here for your emergency flashers and for your dimmer switch. So go ahead and disconnect those. And so after they're both disconnected, just go ahead and set it outside of the car where it's not going to get damaged. And now we have a better view on what exactly we have to remove. Apologize for the bright light, but you have one bolt right down there, one over here that's already missing. It's one less that I have to remove. One right over there. It's that big one on top of that small one. And then one right down there. So let's go ahead and remove all those. You'll have to remember with these two at the bottom, they can be kind of hard to get to, and that's why you have the extensions. You'll want to make sure to take your time, because you don't want to have to fish them out behind from somewhere if it falls into a hard to reach place. And so with all your bolts removed, just tilt it up and fish it out. And as I said, it just slides right out. So now I'm going to go ahead and remove that clip and that wire bundle. So with that removed, then you can go ahead and hook it up to your new one. Really simple. Just connect it right into the connector. And just slip it back in the same way it came out. And if you want, you can go ahead and test everything out right now, seeing as how it's all disconnected. So let's go ahead and do that. Everything's working correctly. Go ahead and turn it on. Unfortunately, the mileage is a little bit different, but we now have a working cluster. So now all you have left to do is just put everything back together. Go ahead and turn the car off. Now I want to show you guys a little trick. If you ever have an issue where your screw or bolt or whatever you're trying to screw back in or put back in keeps falling out of your socket, well, there's a trick. You stick your bolt or your screw or whatever it is into your socket, get yourself a piece of masking tape and wrap it around the sides like so. Just enough so it'll retain it in there, and it will allow you to reinstall the piece of hardware. And so with that little trick, you can access harder to reach places and not have to worry about, at least not as much, about your piece of hardware falling out of the end of the socket and getting lost in the abyss. Go ahead and install and pop in your trim. Careful not to break it, as I said with the warning about old American plastic. And everything just pops right back into place. Make sure everything's nice and flush. Grab your 2 remaining screws, put them back in. So now with everything back in place, go ahead and put all your stuff away, take it for a test drive. And so take the car on a test drive, make sure everything works right, especially your trip meter and your odometer. Make sure all your lights work properly. Make sure the tach properly registers gear changes. Make sure your odometer works. Make a mental note of what it's at. Make sure your trip meter works. It's clearly working. So that is how to remove and replace an instrument cluster in a 97 to 2005 Chevy Malibu. Thanks for watching, guys, and if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them, and don't forget to rate and subscribe. You all stay classy.